So imagine you have something happen to you as a stroke, a heart attack, or anything like that where you are put into the hospital for an extended period of time. What rights do you have? About 3 years ago, my grandpa had a stroke, and my mom was in Kansas, my uncle was in Kansas. He has no other family, and he was all the way out in western Nebraska. And so there was no one around there to kind of explain to him what rights he had. Could he refuse treatment? Did he have a right to know where he could go? He didn't know any of that. He just kind of went with the flow with what the doctors were telling him and didn't understand what they were telling him. So what we're going to do here today is teach you what rights you have and how to use those rights to your advantage.
Okay, so a few quick things that we were going to mention is that you do have a right to keep your information private, but that's like a huge topic, and same with consent. So there's another group that will be presenting on consent later.
So you think you may have fractured your ankle, huh?
Yeah, and it really hurts. Fell off a ladder, I saw it. Whoa, wasn't this is no.
Okay, let's get your information so we can take care of you.
Going to the hospital can be overwhelming, especially when you're in pain, but it helps to know your rights as a patient. The x-ray confirmed that you shattered your ankle. Unfortunately, you'll need surgery to insert pins so that your ankle will heal properly. Do you have any questions? Well, next we'll need to admit you. Then the surgeon will come by shortly to explain the procedure. When we get your consent, we can schedule your surgery.
Hi, I'm Amy, your nurse. I understand you're having some pain. Can you tell me what your level of pain is on a scale from 0 to 10? Armando, we'll need to schedule your rehab.
Tenemos que programar tu rehabilitación.
In this case, the show must go on without you.
En este caso, el evento debe continuar sin ti.
And here's a copy of the instructions we just went over and the list of medications. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm sure you'll be happy to get home.
Knowing your rights as a patient can help you make better decisions. Speak up and ask questions. Take an active role in your care. You'll be glad you did.
Okay, so your basic rights as a patient, the most basic one is that you have a right to choose your health care, which also means you can choose to refuse any treatment that doctors are wanting you to do. You are allowed to choose your provider, and you have a right to access your own information, which a lot of people don't know. So whatever's in your record, you should be able to have access to, and you can request for that information. Another important concept is that discrimination is not allowed. So this means that providers cannot refuse to treat you because of your race, color, ethnicity, religion, or your ability to pay. You also have the right to have your family notified or not notified if you're getting treatment at a hospital. You can also get test results directly from the lab rather than having to wait to get them from your doctor. Other rights that you have is that the doctor has a duty to inform you of your rights. This means that you should know and understand what your care plan is, your healthcare status, and your prognosis. If you do not feel that you understand, don't hesitate to ask questions. You are in control of your healthcare. Your doctors are there to treat you and help you, so you need to make sure that you understand what they're trying to do. So there are different kinds of things that you can have for like your not last rights, but if you have like durable power of attorney, you have two kinds. So there's your general that takes care of like your taxes and general information, and then there's your healthcare one, which basically means that if you can't communicate, they will communicate for you what should like for healthcare. And an events directive is a written statement of a person's medical treatment wishes, and that's usually with a living will. And that's specifically used when a person is no longer to communicate their wishes to a doctor. And then there's a DNR, which is also known as an allow natural death, which means that they won't perform CPR or do anything to help revive the person if they stop breathing. before the heart stops working. And then each state also has a patient bill of rights, which they're going to talk about next after I show an overview.
Oh, my shoulder's been hurting. But every time I go to the doctor, I get nervous and forget things I wanted to ask. It's silly. Even at my age, it feels like I'm going to the principal's office.
Everything looks green.
My daughter said, before you go in, write down your questions. And then when you're there, take notes too so we can talk later. No, Tammy, don't put that in your ear. So over the next few days, I made my list.
When Mrs. Popple came in, I was glad she brought a list. We talked through her concerns, and she even took notes. She's on a number of medications, so I want to be sure she is clear on what to do. Sometimes patients get embarrassed or anxious, so I help them feel comfortable to ask questions. And after I explain something, I ask them to repeat it to make sure they truly understand.
Make sure you speak up if you don't understand everything your doctor or nurse is explaining, such as new medications, why you're being examined, or why you need a certain procedure or lab test. Your medical team is there to make sure you fully understand everything you should about your health. So please be prepared and speak up.
Okay, so I'm going to go through the patient rights in Kansas specifically. A lot of them you'll see are going to overlap with what Madison had just talked about. But the first one is that each patient has the right to respectful care given by competent personnel. 2 is that each patient has the right upon request to be given the name of his attending physician and the names and functions of all practitioners directly involved in his or her care. 3 is that each patient has the right to make healthcare decisions. Each patient has the right to the information necessary to make treatment decisions and also to request a change in his physician or a transfer to another healthcare facility. Each patient has the right to accept medical care, to refuse treatment, and to be informed of the medical consequences of refusing that treatment. Each patient has the right to create advance directives and appoint someone to make healthcare decisions on their behalf. Each patient has the right to assistance in obtaining consultation with another physician or practitioner at that patient's request and their own expense. Each patient has the right to hospital services without discrimination, which may include race, sex, religion, and a variety of other factors. Each patient or patient's legally designated representative has access to the information contained in the patient's medical records within the limits of the state law. Each patient has the right to examine and receive a detailed explanation of their bill. And lastly, each patient is informed of the facility's policies regarding patient rights during the admission process.
Now on the Missouri side of things, they are very similar to the state of Kansas. For example, you have the basic right to accept or refuse medical care. Patient may also appoint a third party to make the decisions for them if they are incompetent to do so. So if you were in a motor vehicle accident and were not coherent enough to make medical decisions for yourself, you could have someone pre-appointed for you that would come in and make those medical decisions for you. Another right a patient has in the state of Missouri is that the patient has the right to be informed of the hospital's patient's grievance policies and procedures, including who to contact and how. So if you did run into a problem with your patient rights, you have the right to know who to contact and how to file a report to where you can be, where they can help you out with that situation. Another right is the patient has the right to file a formal or informal verbal or written grievance and to expect and prompt. I'm on the wrong slide. I am on the wrong slide. That is why. All right. The patient has the rights to be free from abuse, neglect, and harassment. That is one of the main rights given by the Bill of Patient Rights in the state of Missouri. They also must be treated with respect and consideration. Patients, when they come in for care, they have to be informed of the plan of care and the general information about patient services being provided, whether it be physical therapy, lab work, or anything like that. They also have the right to review or request copies of the medical record for a small minimal fee, and they can participate in their own discharge. They can also have someone designated to help out with that. Like, is there services that can be provided once they are discharged, whether it be PT or OT or home health care and services like that. They also have the right to the protection of their personal items brought into the facility, whether it be your wallet, your keys, clothing, anything like that. It is the hospital's responsibility to protect that as much as they can. And it is the CEO's responsibility in ensuring the protection of all these rights. Back to what I was saying earlier about you have the right to refuse medical care, appoint someone, and then you have that right to file any grievances if any of those rights were violated while you were in the hospital.
Okay, so I want to explain to you about confidentiality, which in basic terms means information that you share with your doctor or physician will not be shared with anyone else. I want to share with you this example. A physician on staff at a hospital is diagnosed and treated for AIDS. News of his diagnosis circulated around the staff and patients, and he successfully sued for breach of confidentiality. And the reason he was breaching confidentiality was his physician was using his diagnosis as a term of gossip and not seeking help for the treatment of the patient, and that's basically what confidentiality is. And there are a few exceptions to it with legal reporting. So when your patient information is within a lawsuit, the physician has the right to tell more about what's going on. Reporting of abuse, which we most often see in children and elderly people. Communicable diseases. So each state and the government sends out or has a list of diseases that you are required by government to say this X amount of people have AIDS and diseases like that. And then in birth and death certificates as well.
So patient privilege, as a patient, your physician cannot discuss or release your information that you have discussed with him without your authorization. So examples of the privileged communications would be like a physician, patient, attorney, client, and then spouses. Any of that information that you discuss with them cannot be shared. There is a legal right to keep certain information confidential, and which is protected from subpoena and discovery and introduction. Exceptions to that can occur when there is a higher duty to speak. So in those cases, there is no liability for a release. The reasoning behind this privilege is that it encourages patients to disclose all relevant information without fear of that information being made public. Also, once a lawsuit is filed or has been placed, the physician can openly discuss relevant information for that lawsuit without the patient's authorization. And then if confidentiality is breached on accident or on purpose, then the privilege is also waived.
Alright, that wraps up our
Yeah.
So who's your audience?
It's supposed to be more so like people that are elderly or like older individuals who may not know all the rights as far as like having their patient information goes. Like a lot of people don't know that. Okay. You can have like
patient
you can
rights.
get your labs, you can get any information that they have. Like most people don't know that, but it's important that you see that so you understand what your care process is. So it's more so targeted for people that are elderly, however it applies to anybody.
And patient rights has changed a lot over the years too. Like, so people that are elderly might not know what the new rights are, like how they've changed and adapted.
So the one thing, and I knew most of this, but looking at it also from my lens, and having been through some of this recently with my mother and my husband, just looking at that, you had rights, just general rights, and then Kansas and then Missouri. It would be interesting to know why they have different rights. Who actually determines that?
Okay.
And why are they different? Because I found myself wondering that, and I didn't see it on the slide you said.
Okay.
I love the way you started with a personal example. I thought that was really good. but I found myself wondering, and I mean, I knew, and I think it was in the slides, but what did your father do all alone? I mean, did he, and you said later on, you know, there's all the different, I always forget that you can have advanced directives, and you can have power of attorney, and you can have this and that, but even if you have all of that and you're out of town, how does somebody find that out? And I know they can. I'm sure the hospital knows how to track
So
that
I think
down
that's
and
where we
find
need to talk
it.
about the court
I know.
being the court appointed designee.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know,
We should talk
you're
about
supposed to
that.
have
We
those
should.
documents with you at all times, especially if you're going in for a procedure, you're supposed to have them with you, but you
Yeah.
can't always have them with you.
But
In
you
emergency
also, you
situations.
know, you have a stroke and you're at the grocery store and somebody rushes you to the hospital. Probably have ID on you.
Yeah.
And these are the types of things, you know, I mean, we wondered, what if my mother's 91 now, you know, what would happen to her in that situation? How would they know which of us to call or how? And most people do have those things in their phone now and stuff like that. But I think, you know, elderly people wonder about that and they want to make sure they're prepared. I thought the presentation was great. I thought the way you divided up, you each had your own part to do. Since you practiced, you're probably not going to skip a slide again. But at first I thought you were just kind of ad-libbing off the one that was there, which is fine too. You know, I always add more detail than what's on a slide. You don't have to have everything you're going to say on a slide. But then about partway through, I started thinking, is he looking at a different thing? So, you know, be supportive of each other. I mean, if you noticed it immediately, you should have just quietly, professionally said something. You know, let's just back up instead of letting them get halfway through it. I mean, right?
Yeah.
We'd all be
I kind of
comfortable
realized
with
it's like,
that.
wait
Yeah,
a minute
yeah.
here, this doesn't sound right.
I thought you were ad-libbing too, sorry.
Yeah, me too.
I was just
So
going
it's
with
not
it.
just-
no.
Yeah, you really did sound like you were ad-libbing on it. So that, I mean, which is great. So you have the ability to do that too. So really, it's more, you know, I thought the way you put it together. I loved having videos in there. It's great to find those. It's just really from. If I was, and soon I will be an elderly patient watching this. You know, I would wonder. So why are there differences? And I live in Missouri and I work in Kansas and I have all my care here. Is it really different if I go to St. Luke's than KU? What my rights are?
That would be very nice to.
Which is why we have
know.
both of them.
Yeah. But to really give that a real specific local example like that. So if you're at St. Luke's instead of KU, you really have this extra right, or you don't have that right. You know, because I think the state ones come first and then the other ones, right?
Yeah, there's like the umbrella of the federal,
Right.
and then the states have theirs, and then the hospital has their own.
Right. And that could vary too. So that was one question, just, you know, a little more clarity on that. And then, you know, what if, like your father, you know, I don't know where he had a stroke or what, but, you know, if you do have that event happen, when you're out shopping and you're all alone and you can't communicate, how do they get the right person to communicate for you? And a court-appointed person, you know, hopefully they know how to go find people and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know that I trust just any court-appointed person, you know?
Yeah. Alright.
Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And you kept it on time, the timing was great, yeah.